Hi everyone. Today we will discuss about alcohol inks with artist Kate Spencer-Millan. Before we are going to find out more about this medium. I would like to ask Kate, what is your background, and how have you developed your career as an artist so far?
So my background is I guess I've always been creative. My family is fairly creative, and some of them have kind of artistic jobs. I initially went to school for interior design, but it was a little bit restricting. I don't think I could kind of just do whatever I wanted. It's always somebody else's idea that you're putting on paper and trying to design a room or whatever. And so then I started following my heart a little bit more, and I just picked up a paintbrush and never really painted. This was probably 15 years ago now. Picked up the paintbrush and then just started going, and it was mainly with acrylics. So really got into acrylics for a long time, for many years, and started mixing in some mixed media and getting a lot of texture type stuff going on as well. But I think as artists, we're always forever evolving and trying out new things. And a couple of years ago, probably like 3 years ago, I was living in Calgary. My husband is from there, and I was living there for about 13 years. And I went to a trial class for the alcohol inks and fell in love with them pretty much. My husband and I, shortly after that, moved to the UK. Well, I should say I returned to the UK. I'm originally from here, even though my accent doesn't say that. But so we moved in with my mom initially, and she has a tiny little house, and so there's not much room to create. So I thought, okay, I'm going to buy a couple of inks, and I can work fairly small with the inks. And it just developed from there. I haven't picked up a brush to paint acrylic since. So that's, like I said, about 3 years ago. And I just fell in love with them. They're so fun and colorful, and you can like restrict them a little bit, but I just love the like unpredictability of them that you get on the paper. So yeah.
Oh, that is amazing, and I need to share your story. The same, I finished interior design. I've done the master's in this.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
literally
yeah.
the same, and the same, I didn't find that this is my call.
No.
So I got stuck on that. I said, no, it's too restrictive. It's not giving me the freedom that I want.
Yeah, I know it's somebody else's idea, and I love doing commissions, but they're difficult to do, or more difficult to do, because you have guidelines, and as artists, I think we don't like the guidelines. We like to just explore and experiment and see where a painting comes out, and well, anyway, that's how I work. So
I know we love our freedom.
Yes, yeah.
So, Kate, you mentioned about the commissions. How do you seek out opportunities, and how do you make a living out of being an artist?
Well, it's difficult, for one. And I think you have to have your fingers in many pies. So in terms of getting commissions, one of the ways that I do it is I walked, there's a hike in Spain, northern Spain, El Camino de Santiago, and it's a huge part of my life, and I've done it twice. It's 500 miles across northern Spain, but I've connected with many people that have walked it. And because it's so symbolic for a lot of people, it's initially a pilgrimage, but people do it for many spiritual reasons or not, just, to try something new. And but it is usually quite significant. It's usually between 30 and 40 days of hiking. And so people want a memory of that. So I have a lot of people that reach out, and they fell in love with the inks as much as I have, and the colorfulness of them. And I think they provide an energy that the Camino does for them. So I do a lot of commissions through people that I connected with on the pilgrim walk that I did. And then I think, word gets around, and they spread your name, and so did this. And, so then people reach out. But then in other ways, making it as an artist, I guess, I take part in group exhibitions. I've done some solo exhibitions. I've also done some teaching. So I teach the inks in the local area. I haven't done any for a while, but that's the way it goes right now for everybody. And yeah, so you got to have your fingers in many pies, I think.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's all art based, so it's all good.
I think, you know, as an artist, if you do your profession, you know, by painting and selling your work and teaching,
Yeah.
is the most fulfilling thing. Is it? Is indeed.
Yeah, I remember selling that first painting at this group exhibition that I was in, and it was actually from another artist that bought it, and I just couldn't believe it. Like, it was the biggest compliment. I didn't even care how much I sold it for. It was just like, oh my god, somebody's actually put money, taken money from their account and put it in mine, and it's just amazing. It was such a biggest compliment. So to be
It's
able
true.
to have that more frequently and have people
Yeah.
really appreciate your art and want to spend money on it is really special. And I do enjoy doing the commissions because obviously the Camino is close to my heart, and I love recreating it, whether it's for their memories or mine, but it's a bit of both, I think. So yeah.
It's true. It's true. So just going back about the alcohol inks, they are quite an exciting medium that has recently became accessible in UK. So it became an increasingly popular medium, but still is relatively unknown to many people. So it will be really interesting to find out more about this medium. Do you have any artworks to share with us in
I
alcohol inks?
do. So I've got a few abstract ones, and that's how I started out, was just doing abstract, and I'd play with different colors. And like I said, I bought a couple of inks, and then a couple more the next week, and a couple more, and you just build up your collection. And it's not necessarily like acrylics or oils where you have to have a certain spectrum of colors. You can really just have fun with whatever takes your fancy at the time. But yeah, so abstract stuff, I just play around with stuff like this where it's splattering the inks onto the paper. And we work on, it's basically called Yupo paper. And you can get different weights, as in like watercolors and things like that as well. It's just personal preference, really, but it's basically a non-porous surface. So the inks move best when it's able to just keep flowing and moving around rather than being absorbed into the paper. This is another abstract one that I've got.
Wow.
Based on the chakra colors.
Strong colors, very nice.
Yeah. They're all so bright, and they all have different colors that come out of them too. So even though they're obviously mixed on the canvas there's just out of, say, black, you get many colors. You even get pink that comes out of black, and then you get blues and purples. And so yeah, it's really fun. So it just all depends on how thin you or like you water it down. You can even do portraiture. It takes a little bit more practice and time to figure out that, but you can get in there with a paintbrush as well and do a little bit more precise work. And this is one of my examples of the Camino as well.
Wow, very detailed.
You can get in and do like the fences and things like that, but I still like to keep the inks alive and let them do their own thing as well. So even though I tighten up a little bit just to get some detail, I tend to still try and let them be as they want to be, if that makes sense.
That's amazing. And I have been on your website, and I've seen some artworks. I just want to share with everyone your website. So it is spencermillanart.com. If anyone wants to, find out more about this, your work, purchase or order a commission. And I have selected some of artworks. If you can tell us the story behind, will be really interesting.
So this one is from the Camino. I'd say 80% of my work is the Camino. But the boot hanging, I guess somebody had, this is towards the end of the 500 miles, and I guess their boots had worn a little bit thin. So they decided just to leave them behind. They must have had another pair, I would hope, rather than going barefoot. But and then the symbol that's on that it's hanging on is actually I guess it's kind of abstract there, but it's a conch shell. So this is what leads and directs you on the Camino, is these little shells everywhere. So they put them every so often so that you know you're on the right path. And yeah, so that was just one that was captured in the moment as I was walking, and inspired me.
It's nice. I find it very symbolic, yes, very symbolic, and I love the colors.
Thanks.
Very nice. And here, I love the landscape. I literally fall in love with this painting.
Yeah.
Does it has a specific title?
Yeah, this one is from Canada. So where we lived in Canada was Calgary in Alberta, which was really close to the Rocky Mountains, maybe an hour drive. So many pictures from Canada too. And I was getting, even though I'm initially from the UK, because I lived there for so long, I think it was about 13 years in total, I got a little bit homesick after moving back to the UK. It was like, oh, I do miss Canada. I don't miss the long winters, but I do miss Canada. Yeah, I decided to paint a whole series of Canada pictures, and this is one of them. So I think this is Mount Robson, if my memory is right. But yeah, so the fun with the inks is that you can keep the white of the paper. They don't actually have, I tell a lie, they do have a white ink, but you don't use it as you would use like acrylic with white. It works a little bit more as watercolor would, where you'd have to mask off an area to keep white, and then you do all your work on it, and then the masking fluid comes off so you can get those really bright highlight areas. So you have to kind of work backwards a little bit when you're initially starting, and plan out any highlights that you might want to do. So that's how that one kind of worked out with the mountains and the snowy snow sitting on them there.
So sounds like a complete different technique than other
it really is. So a lot of people reference watercolors, and in a way I can see why people connect it, because it's so fluid. It's as fluid as watercolor is, in terms of like, obviously the water that's on there, the alcohol, it moves just as much. It could just be, mistaken for water, but it doesn't respond the same way as watercolor would. So alcohol will push other areas away from other areas, and it just, it's a completely different technique, and you just have to kind of get your hands in there and just try it and give it a go. It's hard to explain exactly how it works. And then, like I said, if you put more and more alcohol into it, you get thinner colors, but then you also get these other sneaky bits of color that come through on some blues. There's a pink that comes through as well, and so yeah, it's really cool.
So it's based a lot on blending.
There's a lot of blending, and you can get muddy colors, but not very often. It's only if you kind of mix too many at a time. But generally, most of the colors work really well together, no matter if it's like, yellow and orange, or orange and pink even, or, the opposite ends of the color spectrum as well.
Very nice. I think you enjoyed the snow in the morning, is it? It reminded you of Canada.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I said to some friends, I said, the snow is great. It can come for one day, and then I'm good, because I lived for 13 years having to shovel snow for about 6 months. So, I'm okay for it for one day.
Yeah, the same. I was waiting for the snow so much. I was really happy.
Well, it was good for my baby. He's 9 months, so I wanted him to experience it before, much older. So this one is also from the Camino, but a little bit more abstract. I just kind of went with a feel of the picture that I had in front of me. Like I said, you're following many paths, and there's one section of the Camino where it must have been like kilometers and miles and kilometers, whichever you work in. I seem to work in both now. of poppies. So the red little dots that are on there kind of symbolic to poppies. And then there was just this luscious green the entire time. So I put the greens and the blues in there just to give this energy. So it's, you know, it's from a reference picture, but sometimes, like I said, just let the inks speak for themselves and let
Yeah.
them do their own thing as well.
I like that you have in your artworks, areas with very concentrated color and areas with very, clean, nice, transparent areas. So it's a nice blend, into these two kind, of.
A good balance with the two.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. And the last artwork, I really find it mesmerizing, the sunflowers, and it's like they're floating in it's so much. So you can interpret this artwork in your own way. I really love it.
Yeah. This one, again, without sounding too boring, it was from the Camino. And there was fields upon fields and fields of sunflowers. And it was almost like this rolling hill of just sunflowers. So I kind of wanted this wave kind of aspect of these sunflowers coming in, but I think if I'd done every single one, it would have gotten a little bit lost with one another. So that's why I've kind of got the gaps in between, and there's some texture in there as well, which is not easy to do with the inks, but I found a way to put down, like you can put bubble wrap or just cling film. So when it's wet, you put that plastic on top, and then unfortunately you have to wait. I usually leave it overnight so that it really is dry when you come back, and then you peel it off, and you get this nice texture that comes up through it, and you get all these colors that mingle underneath it. So it's very unpredictable what you're going to get. But it's nice. I like that. And then I work on top.
It's really nice. It's so unique, and it's like he's inviting you to try this medium.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm always telling people, you're going to try these inks. You'll be addicted. Yeah. Even if you can't paint, everybody loves the inks. I've done so many classes where people are like, oh, I'm not very artistic. I'm like, oh, you're going to love these, though. You really are. And they truly do. By the end of it, they've sent me an email after saying, I've just spent a fortune on inks and I'm addicted.
It's true. It's something unique and really nice to try. And so thank you so much. These are the artworks that I selected from the website. I really loved this one.
Thank you.
The others, very nice.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, the alcohol inks, on what other material can they be used to? So you mentioned the paper. Is any other way people can use the alcohol inks for other purposes?
So you get the best results on UPO. That's YUPO. It does get a bit expensive though, but like I say, you can buy different grades of paper. So you can buy a cheaper paper just to practice on. But you can also work on just regular tile. It's just a white tile. So I actually use this for my palette. So I put the inks on here and they're constantly reactivated. So I've got one that's messy already. So this is a palette as well. But this is just a tile also. But if I was to put alcohol down on those inks, even though they're dry, it reactivates them. So you can always wipe a tile completely clean and start again. So if anyone's new, it's a good way just to kind of practice rather than on the paper. So you can use tile, anything really that's non-porous. So you could work on glass. You're not going to get the same intensity of color on glass because it's obviously see-through, and so the inks are going to be that little bit more transparent or opaque depending which ones you use, but I think you get the brightness because it's sitting on something white. What else have I used it on? Plastic, even though there's a little bit of absorption in plastic, you can still work on it. So there's one year I did some Christmas baubles and they were plastic and I just kind of inked the inside of them. I'm kind of experimenting because a lot of the time, so these wooden canvases, I don't know if you've seen them, but I used to work with acrylic on these as well, but I usually mount my my Yupo paper onto this and then work on top of it so that I don't have to worry about framing all the time.
Yeah.
But there's a spray that you can get. It's basically enamel spray, and it's white. I think they use them to cover like baths and things like that, like to create new coatings on baths. But obviously that's non-porous as well. So again, it's not quite as good as the Yupo. Like I find the Yupo is the best for moving around nicely. There's a slight absorption with the spray, but I will spray them sometimes and work on them that way as well. But yeah, so it just depends on what you like. Some people hate Yupo.
Yeah.
Oh, another one is graphics paper as well. That works really nicely. You can clean that off. So there's lots of options.
Wow, that's amazing. I think that will go well as well for people who love card making, is it?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, definitely. Especially if there's any pieces that you don't think really work out. I've made bookmarks with my crappy ones, like just cut them up into bookmarks, and you can get like little sleeves for them. Card making is a really good one. You can really do some neat stuff with it. So yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. So, people who are interested, they can use for so many different things. Is really nice.
I would just experiment. Honestly, you can try on almost any surface. The only thing is that if any alcohol gets near it, the ink is always reactivated. So there is sealants and protection that you have to spray on if you want. Once you've finished a painting, you have to seal it. And then the only other downside to the inks, I think maybe is part of the reason they've not quite been a huge hit with every artist, is the longevity of them is in question. They're not very light fast, unfortunately. But saying that, I've had this painting for 3 years, and it's exactly the same colors that I initially did it in. So I think it depends on the colors that you use, on how light fast they are. But you can get UV protection sprays and that kind of thing as well.
Oh, right. Yes, that's interesting. So you have quite a good range, is it, of materials to choose from? It's like
definitely, yeah. And then you have to mix it with. Sorry, I'm just going to grab this. It's basically turn it the right way. Alcohol, and you want as high a percentage as possible. So this is 99%. You can use 90, but 70 doesn't really work. And so another downside is the smell aspect. So if I'm working for a long time with the inks, I will wear a mask, or I'll make sure where I am, I've got like a huge patio door, so I usually open the door and we're good to go. But so that's the only major kind of downsides to the inks. Otherwise, they're just fun.
Oh, brilliant. And is it any chance, Kate, you can show us a short demo?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let me just try and turn my camera around and get resituated here. Okay. There's the snow out there.
Yes, yes.
Melting fast, though. It's crazy.
It's a miracle. Yes, snow.
Yeah.
In UK, brilliant.
I know. Experiment, hey. So I've got the alcohol in a bottle here. So this is kind of like our water as to maybe acrylics or watercolor. So use it kind of the same way. Sometimes you get some staining. Sorry, I'm just going to move my painting out of the way. Sometimes you get staining from the ink. So I usually put alcohol down first, and then put the ink into that. And then I usually move it around. You can move it around with like a straw or something. This is just a lens blower that it puffs out air. And then you can move it around.
Wow.
But you see how it's starting to thin out on the edges? But I quite like that. I usually start thin and then start adding more into it if I need a little bit thicker or a little bit heavier color. But I don't know if you can see that. There's pinks coming through already.
It is so much.
So you can direct it in certain ways, but it's still going to have a life of its own. I just want to bring it a bit closer so you can see. Can you see the pinks
Yes, it's
coming out of
amazing.
that blue and like kind of purple tones? And then there's light blue in there as well. Like
It's
that's just
definitely
one
something.
color.
Yeah, you can't achieve with a brush,
No,
and what you can't is
no, exactly.
unique.
And then so I'm going to add a second color in here. This is pistachio. I love all the names of the colors too. So out of the pistachio, there's usually a little bit of yellow that comes through on the edges. Kind of like in watercolors, you get the blooming effect. So you kind of get that, and the blooming is like the lines and things that you get.
Yeah,
So as it dries, you can kind of, this is where you would get in with a paintbrush when it's almost dry. That's when
yeah,
you can kind of make a line, do something a little bit more precise. But you can see there as well,
yes,
the green and the yellow that's kind of coming through that edge,
yes.
so it would take you a long time to get that if you wanted that with a brush. And I'm not sure I would know what it was I wanted. But now that it's there, I think it's really pretty.
Yes.
And it dries, and you do get a little bit of staining on Yupo, so you can never really get rid of it completely. Sometimes I'll come in with paper towel as well, create a little bit of texture. You get some marks kind of happening in there. And
Very
it's
nice.
good. That's probably one of the techniques I use as well, is removing
Yeah,
ink just as much as I add it. So sometimes I'll want an area that's a little bit lighter. So see that? You can really remove
yeah.
it as well. Even though that was already dry, because I put alcohol on here, it comes right off. But you do get this staining, but I work with that, like that. I use that to my advantage. That's kind of what I want. And then you've got black, which seems really, really heavy initially. So we're just going to put one blob because it goes really, really far. Lots of alcohol. And then, so you can get really, really intense. But sometimes I just use black as I would with acrylics or watercolors and use it to kind of darken a color. And so you can mix them as well. But you can see all those colors coming through. So the inks are always reactivated. They don't necessarily sit on top of one another like acrylics or oils would, where you would put one layer, let it dry, and then work on top. The whole thing is always going to be moving. The second you put any alcohol down, it's always going to move. So yeah,
Wow, it is amazing.
it's fun. It's definitely fun. But you can get really creative. You can use lots of different textures. So like I said, I use this. I've used bubble wrap. Sometimes I just get in with a cotton bud on the end. I've also the spray bottles as well. You can use a spray bottle, but you can just remove the ink,
Cotton
dab it
bud.
around. So anyone that's just, starting out with art and wants to just play and have fun, there's really no difficulty with this. You just put the inks down. Don't
Yeah.
like it, if you're on a towel, you wipe it clean, or you get a new piece of paper. But you can go through paper really fast. That's why Yupo kind of gets quite expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is amazing.
Any other questions?
Yes, can you use these inks, alcohol inks, as a background, and then on top use other medium like watercolor, acrylic, or oils?
Yeah, so watercolor would struggle just because of the surface.
Right.
I know some people do. I have tried watercolor purely on the Yupo paper, but it doesn't seem to dry. It doesn't dry properly. Like you can
Right.
always smudge it. Acrylics, no problem. You can put acrylics down, easy peasy.
Yeah.
And I have done a couple of pieces where you can get the acrylic gels as well, where you can create texture and thickness. So I've done that and then worked the inks over the top. You do lose, so when these dry, like when they're fully dry, like I don't know if you can see that, there's a little bit of shine. So when you
Yes.
work on the Yupo, you keep that shine, but you may lose that shine a little bit when you're working on other surfaces and or having like layering of different, acrylic or like I probably steer away from watercolor, but there's pens that you can put on there as well to do detailed work if you wanted to work that way.
Oh wow, yeah.
Mhm.
Do you need to use glaze or fixing medium at the end?
Not a fixing exactly. It's just the UV protection that I would recommend.
No,
It's
no,
definitely trial and error um,
yeah,
with which products work. So it's kind of, you know, anything because the sprays are alcohol based. This is
yeah,
the issue. There is one brand, I think it's Liquitex, which is water based. So it has
oh,
a UV protection and it's a water based spray. So once these are dry, if you get water on here, it's not going to activate it. So the water based spray is a good option to go down. And then it does help seal it and protect it a little bit and hopefully protect it from UV rays because, like I said, it's not very light fast. So anything you can kind of encourage and for them to
yeah,
last a little bit longer. But I've not had any issues yet. And I always just let everybody know that um, this is an option. But with this day and age, it's kind of the age that we live in, people are always replacing stuff anyway. So most people don't seem to have a problem with it. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is, I think.
it's true.
Yeah.
Are the water-based alcohol inks more expensive than this one?
So it's not the water-based inks; it's just the spray to
Oh,
protect
that's
it.
great. Yeah, yeah.
So you can get water-based inks though, but they're not going to work the same way as
Oh,
these. So
oh,
if you are buying inks, make sure that it says alcohol inks because this is a mistake a few beginners makers or they get people to buy them as a gift
yeah.
and they've got the wrong ones. They're just water-based, whereas these are uh, alcohol-based.
If you want to make tiny details, can you
Yeah.
use a brush or how do you make the tiny
Yeah,
detail?
so I have a couple of brushes here. So
Oh,
it's quite thin. It's
yeah,
I probably would even use thinner than that. And usually what I do is I get my tile
yeah,
and I'll put the ink down on the tile first. And if I'm in a hurry, so if I was to put this down, it's gonna spread more than I want. So I
yeah,
usually dab it off onto paper towel and then it's kind of like a fine line. You really have to just kind of play around with it. But you see how
yeah,
much less this one spread versus this one
yeah.
because it started to dry a little bit on my brush. There's probably even still a little bit more. So you can get in those nice fine lines versus this one that spread right away
Yeah.
and it went way thicker. And then, like I said, this can always be reactivated and I can get more out of it. And you get really, really thin lines.
That's
And then if you
amazing.
put, even if you put like, sometimes I remove ink with the brush as well. So I put some alcohol onto the tile and then you can come in
Oh, wow.
and just get different patterns. And sometimes you just have to wait a second and let it do it. See, it's still
Yeah.
moving in here and starting to lighten. But yeah, you can get in there with a brush. Takes a bit of practice though with the brush.
Wow. It's really mesmerizing. I will watch you for the rest of the
Yeah,
day.
I know. I wish I could do classes again because people really do love it. Like, and nobody wants to go home at the end of the day, like, no, it's not time to go home yet. It's so funny.
That is amazing, Kate. So thank you so much for
Oh, you're
visiting
welcome.
and introducing us to this medium.
Yep.
Uh, is outstanding, and everyone. So if you are interested to contact Kate, I'll share with you once again the website spencermillanart.com, all the artworks. If you're interested for commissions or even classes, you can
Yeah.
contact.
If you have any questions, just let me know.
Exactly, exactly. Once again, Kate, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you so much.
And please, guys, if you have any more questions, drop us all your questions in the comment box on our social media pages at Art Classes Group or through our website, artclassesgroup.com. Thank you so much for everyone. I hope this will be a massive inspiration to try something new, get more creative, and see you everyone next time. Thank you, Kate, as well.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.